Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the internet, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. We got a bunch of things to talk about here today in the world of movie news and entertainment. We've got Ocean's 8 is tracking pretty good still. There's going to be an Addams Family animated movie coming. Obviously, we got to talk a lot about this whole Jared Leto is getting a standalone Joker film, all that types of good stuff. But before we get to any of that, let's go right off the top with this. Now, a little while ago, the first little teaser for the animated film coming out, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, dropped. And I'm going to tell you, I wasn't all that impressed with it. Granted, it was just a first trailer, but even for a first trailer, it did nothing to even get me intrigued. Well, this morning, a brand new Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse trailer, the first real full one, has come out that's given us a much better look at what this movie is going to look like, about what the tone of the film is going to be, a little bit of insight to the nature of the characters. It's very difficult for me not to recognize the voice of Jake Johnston as Peter Parker. That was a little bit off. I don't think that was a good fit for the voice of Peter Parker, but hey, that's just me, whatever. And while I really didn't care all that much for that first teaser that they put out, I gotta say, this one did a lot more to get me intrigued. Now, I don't think this was a spectacular, no pun intended, I don't think this was a spectacular trailer, but it did a lot more to get me interested in it. I still not sure I'm on board with the animation style, although at times it looks really beautiful, to be honest. And this whole notion of a mentor-mentee, and one of the things that's really neat, did you notice that right off the bat, just to make sure there's no question and there's no confusion about, wait a minute, is this movie in continuity with the other Spider-Man we've got going on in the movie universe? You hear Miles Morales say right up front, in your universe, there's one Spider-Man. But there's another universe where there's multiple, so they kind of paint the wall right there to let everybody know, to avoid any confusion. These are two separate universes. Don't worry about or thinking that there's any kind of crossover. They're not. These are two completely different universes. I thought that was smart on their part. So yeah, while I'm still not, again, no pun intended, climbing up the walls about this particular trailer or even about this particular movie, I gotta say that this trailer got me a lot more on board with the idea of the movie than I was before. And really, ultimately, that's the job of a trailer, right? To take wherever you were in your excitement level for a movie and try to kick it up a few notches. And mission accomplished when it comes to this trailer. It took an average fan like me and increased my anticipation for the movie. So yeah, overall, I think you got to say the trailer did a pretty good job. All right, with that stuff out of the way, it's time to get caught up on some movie news. So here's today's movie news feed. First up, a few months ago, a short teaser was released for the upcoming Peter Jackson adaptation of Mortal Engines. Yesterday saw the release of the first full trailer. From Deadline, the movie is set thousands of years after civilization was destroyed by a cataclysmic event, and humankind has adapted to a new way of living, with gigantic moving cities roaming the earth, preying upon smaller traction towns in a survival of the fastest. Tom, who hails from a lower tier of the great traction city of London, finds himself fighting for his survival after he encounters the fugitive Hester. The two characters form an unlikely alliance destined to change the course of the future. Mortal Engines is scheduled to hit theaters on December 14th, the exact same day as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and just 1 week before the release of Aquaman, Bumblebee, and Alita Battle Angel. Good luck. Okay, so let's talk about this trailer. I liked it. I'll be honest with you, I'm one of these guys that I have not read the Mortal Engines books. I really don't know anything about them. And that first teaser that we got a number of months ago was really my first introduction. I thought, okay, this looks intriguing. This trailer took that one step further. It gives you a sense of the adventure of it. It gives you a sense of the scope of it. It gives you a sense about the whole working premise about cities that devour other smaller cities going around. You got Hugo Weaving in there, which is always a big plus for me. I love Hugo Weaving. And of course, he's worked with Peter Jackson before, playing Elrond in his Lord of the Rings films. Now, the release date of this film is still curious to me. I get it. The Christmas season is a hot time to release movies. Opening it on the same day as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, okay, that's going to be a little bit of counter-programming. I can understand. I think both movies will do well, but they're going to kind of draw upon different audiences. Some crossover, yes, but for the most part, I think different audiences. However, opening this film 1 week, just 1 week before Alita Battle Angel, Bumblebee, and Aquaman? That seems like a little question. I can't help but wonder if they might not move the release date of this film. Now, the trailer to me makes it seem like the movie is going to be a strong film. That's good, but that's an awful lot of competition. And after what we've just seen happen with Solo and with Deadpool, really, with the drop that it took, I just can't help but wonder if maybe they might consider moving it. But still, getting back to the trailer, overall, I thought it was pretty damn solid, and this coming from a guy who doesn't know anything about the books. Next up, the Sandra Bullock-led heist film Ocean's 8 is set to hit theaters this weekend, and it looks like the film is going to come in at around $35 million for its opening weekend, which is consistent with the longer-range tracking the film had just a few weeks ago. If these numbers hold, it would mean that Ocean's 8 would knock Star Wars Solo out of the #1 spot at the box office after just 2 weeks at #1. In the film, Bullock plays the estranged sister of Danny Ocean, of course George Clooney's character from the other Ocean's films. After getting released from jail, she attempts to pull off a heist at New York City's annual Met Gala. The film also stars Cate Blanchett, Anne Hathaway, Mindy Kaling, Sarah Paulson, Rihanna, Helena Bonham Carter, and the person with the worst name in Hollywood, Awkwafina. And who would have thought just a couple of months ago that Ocean's 8 opening with $35 million on Solo's just its third weekend would be enough to knock Solo out of the #1 spot. But that's what's going to happen if Ocean's 8 actually does open with $35 million. You know, $35 million would be a pretty solid opening for a film like this. Look, roughly speaking, you want to make at least half of your production budget in the domestic box office opening weekend. The production budget for Ocean's 8 is around $70 million, so opening at 35 would put them very comfortably right in a nice spot that they want to be. That's fine. Now look, I know there's going to be very little resemblance between the other Ocean's movies and this Ocean movie, but I'm still looking forward to it because it's a heist film. I am a big sucker for heist films. You have multiple Academy Award winning actresses in here. I think the trailers have been nice. They haven't blown my socks off. I haven't been jumping up and down about them, but they've been solid, and especially for the fact that they feed my hunger for heist films. So I'm really excited about that. But again, it just kind of stuns me just a few weeks ago even. The notion that in its third week, Solo would be knocked out of the #1 spot by a film that only opens with $35 million was kind of inconceivable. But anyway, this story's about Ocean's 8. I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually going to see it tonight. As a matter of fact, so look for my review of that tomorrow, and we'll see how it turns out. Next up, get ready to welcome the Addams Family back to the big screen again, this time in the form of an animated feature film from MGM. THR reports that Oscar Isaac and Charlize Theron will voice Gomez and Morticia Addams in MGM's animated Addams Family movie. Additionally, Nick Kroll will voice Uncle Fester, Chloe Grace Moretz will voice Wednesday Addams, Stranger Things star Finn Wolfhard will voice Pugsley Addams, Bette Midler will voice Grandmama, and Allison Janney, well, I should say Academy Award winner Allison Janney, will voice the family's arch nemesis. The story will follow the creepy and kooky family as they face off against a crafty reality TV show host, while also preparing for their extended family to arrive for a major celebration. The Addams Family animated movie is currently scheduled to hit theaters on October 11th, 2019. The Addams Family is kind of like a modern version of Jane Eyre, right? It just seems like every generation somebody's got to remake it. The original TV series and the original films. Now we got the animated film. And look, actually, Addams Family is kind of, from its DNA, designed to be a really good animated film, right? I mean, it just feels like it would naturally live as an animated film. It feels like the world of animation is kind of the natural habitat for a story of the Addams Family. And I'll be honest with you, I'm quite frankly a little bit surprised that it's taken them this long to actually come around and doing an Addams Family movie in the animated format. Now look, it seems like there's a little bit of a short turnaround in this. The fact that it's coming out in October of just next year, that seems tight, but the fact that they already have a lot of stills out there tells me they've actually quietly been working on this movie for a little while up to this point, so probably not much there to worry about. Look, mark me down as somebody who's interested in this. I'm curious to see what direction they take it. And finally, the role of the Joker in 2016 Suicide Squad was basically a glorified cameo and left audiences split on the incarnation of the clown prince of crime. Some didn't like Leto's take on the character, while others, like me honestly, thought he was quite good but not given enough screen time to give a proper account for himself. Well, now, according to Variety, That's all about to change, as the trade is reporting that Jared Leto's Joker is in fact getting his own standalone film, branching off from Suicide Squad. According to Variety, when Warner Brothers announced last fall that it was developing a Joker origin tale for Todd Phillips, the studio emphasized that this did not mean the end for Jared Leto's Joker. Rather, Phillips and producer Martin Scorsese's film would fall under a new Origins banner that would be separate from the current cinematic DC universe. This new banner would allow multiple actors and versions based on the same character with no overlap, and Warner Brothers has already tapped Joaquin Phoenix to star in Phillips's Joker pick. And look, I know that Suicide Squad is as divisive of a film in the DCU as any film, but I'm going to tell you right now, I like the movie. I like Suicide Squad. Yes, it is a hot mess of a film. Absolutely. But I thought there was enough redeeming stuff in there. I thought there was enough enjoyable stuff in there that I walked out of Suicide Squad having been entertained. Could it have been better? Absolutely. I think we all agree about that. But the thing that really got me was that I actually quite liked the Joker. I particularly liked the incarnation and the relationship, this toxic, codependent, nasty relationship between Joker and Harley Quinn. I was fascinated by it. I wanted to see more of it on screen. And to me, the biggest problem and the biggest way they dropped the ball with Joker in Suicide Squad, as many people think, was the fact that they didn't give him nearly enough to do and certainly didn't give him near enough screen time. Now, when it got announced that Todd Phillips and Martin Scorsese were working on this other Joker film, some thought, as we said in the report, that meant that we weren't going to get any more standalone Joker. No. These are going to be two separate universes. And actually, a few months ago, Jared Leto kind of hinted at the fact that he and the studios were still talking about more Joker stuff. So it's going to be neat to see where they go with this. Look, I like what Jared Leto brought to the Joker. I know a lot of people didn't, and that's totally fine. But to me, there have been so many different people playing the Joker. And one of the cool things about the Joker character on screen, whether it's the television screen or the big screen, is the fact that every incarnation of Joker has kind of maintained the spirit of the Joker while manifesting itself in very different ways. Like, for instance, Jack's Joker was extremely different from Cesar Romero's Joker, whose Joker was extremely different from Heath Ledger's Joker, whose Joker was extremely different from Mark Hamill's animated Joker, whose Joker was extremely different from Jared Leto's Joker. He found a way to do the Joker, once again, completely different from all the other Jokers we had, yet I believe at his core kind of maintained the chaos of the Joker, the chaosness, if you will, I'm making up that word, I think, of the Joker, and that's what I bought into. But it was hard to tell how much I bought into it since the character had so little screen time and was so underused, and that's really a shame. And you know, the other big thing that's a shame, with them moving forward with this Birds of Prey project and as a vehicle for Harley Quinn, it means that this Joker movie probably isn't going to have Harley Quinn. I want to see Joker and Harley together. I want to see Jared Leto and Margot Robbie together on screen. They had a great chemistry, in my opinion. So that's a little bit unfortunate. Look, overall, I think it's positive news that we're going to see this Joker, Leto's incarnation of Joker, on the big screen doing his thing again. I'm happy about that as a fan. I'm not guaranteeing it's going to work. Maybe it'll flop, but I'm glad they're at least taking a shot at it. I just would have liked it to have been a Joker and Harley Quinn movie. You know what I mean? Because just in Suicide Squad, I thought the two of them were just absolutely dynamic together, and I really dug it. Now, this brings up another bigger question. This report seems to reaffirm that we are getting two separate kind of DC universes that are going to have, like, DC cinematic theatrical universes that are going to have different versions of the same characters in universes that will not overlap. I see potential in that because it kind of gives you the freedom to tell some really cool stories that you couldn't if you were just confined into one cinematic universe. And I like that. I appreciate that. I see the potential in that. However, as many people will point out, there's also the potential for it to be a big steaming mess and just cause a lot of confusion. And I understand that too. So it is a little bit of a roll of the dice, but hey, filmmaking is art and art is rolling the dice. So we'll just have to see how it all kind of turns out and how we as an audience will respond to it. We're just going to have to wait and see. I'm sure you guys are going to have more to say about that in the live question part of the show anyway. And that'll do it for today's installment of the Movie News Feed. And now you are all caught up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news. Now let's go to some of our main topics, guys. And our main topics are, of course, submitted by you. How do you send in a topic or a question to be on the John Campea Show? It's simple. You just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Put the word topic in the subject line and keep your emails to 90 words or less. Again, email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Put the word topic in there and keep the emails to 90 words or less. So with that out of the way, let's go to the first topic today. And the first topic today is submitted by Daniella Moretti, who writes, "Hey John, I don't care what anybody thinks. I love all the new Star Wars movies. But with the flopping of Solo, even I can see that something needs to happen to get things back on track to make Star Wars as celebrated as it was just a few years ago. I know you said nothing anyone does will make everyone happy, but going into episode 9, what can they do to at least get more people back on board?" All right, thanks a lot for the question, Daniela. And I think there's some legitimate discussion going on about, hey, look, is Star Wars something that should be done more than once a year? You know, I used to make the argument a lot that I thought Star Wars should and would be a one movie per year kind of thing. Then when they started, announcing all, like the Game of Thrones guys, Rian Johnson's new trilogy, you've got this happening and this happening and all that kind of stuff, I finally had to relent and say, well, no, I guess that Disney is moving towards 2 a year. And, I still think it can handle 2 a year. But maybe going back to 1 year or something. But look, ultimately what it comes down to always is the movies themselves. Just make great movies. One of the mantras I always have about films and being a film fan is winning cures everything. And you know what? They came off to a good start. Like, even though Solo is flopping and failing at the box office, and no matter how you try to spin it, when a movie loses its studio's money, that's a failure. And Solo is going to lose the studio a whole bunch of money. So it's failed, but that's the financial part. They made a good movie, and that's good. So that's a step in the right direction. You really got to crush it with episode 9. Now, there's no formulaic thing that they need to do or not to do. It's all about execution. Just make a great movie. If you continue to make great movies, eventually the ship will self-correct itself. But you have to make great movies. That sounds like an oversimplification, but it really, at the heart of it, that's the truth. There are a bunch of people out there, including myself sometimes, self-admittedly, I got to call myself out on this too, but there's a whole bunch of people out there who go, I know what to do with Star Wars. No, you don't. I said it too. What they need to do with Star Wars is this. Really, at the bottom line is, no, I don't. I'm just some schlub, just like all the rest of us. But I think just as long as they execute a great movie. If they execute a great movie, go with whatever formula you want, and let's just see where it goes from there. But there's really nothing else you can do. Formulas do not solve problems. Regardless of what anybody else tells you, formulas do not solve problems. Execution does. So just make the best movie you can, and then let the chips fall where they may. Look, every movie is a bit of a crapshoot. So just put out the best effort you can, put out the best product you can, and then let the chips fall where they may, and then adjust your direction later. So really, that's the only thing I really know how to say to that. All right, let's move on to the next topic. The next one comes to us from Patreon supporter Dion Shepard, who writes, and thanks for being a Patreon supporter, Dion. Hey, John, what are your thoughts on Disney continuing the Toy Story trilogy? Originally, the film was supposed to release this summer, but has been delayed until summer of 2019. I find the third film left on such a high note that a possible continuation may tarnish the originals. What do you think? Bring on the filthy. I'll be honest with you, Dion, I have never subscribed to this theory about if you make another movie, it will tarnish the reputation of the previous. That's been proven wrong so many times. That's been proven wrong so many times. New films, whether they're reboots or sequels or whatever, do not tarnish the reputation of the originals. Look, Hangover Part 2 sucked, but everybody still loves Hangover. The prequels come out and they suck, but everybody still loves the original trilogy. A bunch of people don't like The Last Jedi, but it has not tarnished the original trilogy. Everybody still loves the original trilogy. Whole bunch of people did not like Indiana Jones and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Has not tarnished one bit the level of belovedness, if I made up a word, of the original Indiana Jones films. It's just been proven over and over and over and over again that putting out a new film, whether it's a reboot, a relaunch, a sequel, whatever, does nothing to tarnish the reputation or the cherishedness of the original films that you're talking about in question. And look, to follow that up, I'm sure the discussion was had. They're making a Toy Story 2? The first Toy Story was perfect. Why are they going to ruin Toy Story? And Toy Story 2 is even better than the first Toy Story. You're making a Star Wars 2? The first one was immaculate. It changed the way movies are looked at and made forever. Why would you do a second one and ruin it? And then they make The Empire Strikes Back. Or The Godfather. That's a perfect movie. Why would you risk tarnishing that? And Godfather 2 comes out. Look, it's just that the point is this. You can put out a reboot or a sequel, and yeah, maybe it won't be good. Maybe it won't be good. But I think Hollywood history has shown us over and over and over and over again that it doesn't do anything to tarnish what came before it. And in actuality, you may get something even better than what you had before. Not likely, but it's possible. And I've just listed several examples of when that's happened. So, look, there is clearly a hunger for Toy Story 4. People want Toy Story 4. People are excited about Toy Story 4. The last Toy Story they made didn't just get nominated for Best Animated Film, it got nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. All of them are brilliant, so I honestly don't see any drawback to doing a Toy Story 4. It won't tarnish the belovedness of the original three. And if it's a bad movie, then it's a bad movie. Just like any other bad movie, but it won't really cause any drawbacks, I don't think. So anyway, that's just the way I see it. What do you guys think? Do you think if Toy Story 4 comes out and isn't up to snuff, will that lessen? Because maybe for some of you it will. Will it lessen your love of the original films? I'm curious to know what you have to think. Jump down to the comments section and let me know your thoughts. All right, with that out of the way, I've got just a couple of minutes left here to take some live questions. Let's get into them right now. And the first live question today comes to us from Moose Tack Reviews, who writes, heading off to a party this weekend, really want to hook up with this girl I like. Any advice? Dude, you're talking to the wrong guy. Almost every woman I've gotten into a relationship with over my life made the first move on me. I kid you not. I have no game. Muse Tack Reviews writes, Defenders Season 2, will it ever happen? You know what? I have my doubts. Now, I like Defenders, but, okay, there's a creative point of view on this and a business point of view. From a creative point of view, how do you come up with another scenario where you have to get all these heroes together, like a big enough threat that you have to get all these heroes together, but it's not that big of a threat that would put it on the radar of S.H.I.E.L.D. or the Avengers? How do you navigate that? Anyway, that's just one challenge. But the bigger challenge is this. I don't know if you go through something that extensive for the launching of the Disney streaming service casts a big shadow over a lot of things and brings the future of a number of things into doubt. Now, I'm not saying the upcoming Disney streaming service definitively says that there's not going to be another Defenders, not at all, but I'm saying it adds another element of another question mark to the equation, I think, at this point. So I honestly don't know. And I liked Defenders. I didn't love it, but I liked it. I liked the season of Defenders that we got. But I don't know. I honestly don't know if we're going to get another one. MuseTac also follows up. John, leave Vegas, do a meet and greet in Australia. Well, yes. Somebody give me the $3,000 it'll cost me to fly to Australia and back, and maybe I'll consider it. Jay Bling writes, what is your updated box office expectation for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom? Now with critical responses out, tracking is at 140 million. Will it surprise again? Well, first of all, 140 million would be amazing. I'm going to go 125. I'm going to go 125. Now watch, it comes in at 180 again. And look, and I'm not doubting Jurassic World. I am out of the doubting the Jurassic franchise business. I'm not in that business anymore. But I think 125 would be a good area for it. Now, some people would say, but John, that would be such a massive drop from the last one. Yeah, but the last one completely overperformed. I mean, it would be nonsensical and ridiculous to try to use the results of the last one as the measuring stick. That would be ridiculous and preposterous. That thing clearly way overperformed and surprised everybody. That should not be where your bar of expectation is at whatsoever. I think the 140 140, 150 is probably a better gauge of expectation. I personally think it's going to come in a little bit underneath that, around 125, which is fine. By the way, guys, I put up my review for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom yesterday. Go and check that out. It's on my YouTube channel now. Let's see. Zach Clayton Douglas writes, do you remember the backlash from the first Force Awakens trailer because toxic Star Wars fans had a problem with John Boyega in the first shot of the trailer? Evidence that racism exists in Star Wars. I remember when that happened. And I remember clearly, like, having this discussion with somebody, might have even been on one of my shows. It was the first reveal, if you will, to me, that this little seed of toxicity had come into the Star Wars fandom. But I remember talking to, and I can't remember if it was just a friend of mine I was talking to about, or if I talked about this on one of my shows, but I remember at the time saying, I wouldn't worry about it. It's probably like 2 or 3, yahoos, I wouldn't worry about it, blah, 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 blah. But in the pursuing days after that discussion, like, I remember being like, what the hell? Like, seeing all this stuff about, last time I checked, stormtrooper uniforms were white, and all this kind of, and I was flabbergasted at it. Like, I just couldn't believe it. Like, there are people who call themselves Star Wars fans that talk like this, and I remember it was kind of the first peek into, it was a foreshadowing of kind of what was coming, right? And I just remember how, like, appalled and shocked I was reading all this, like, ridiculousness. But yeah, that was our first foreshadowing of some things to come, unfortunately. Pablo the Nerd writes, Kathleen Kennedy still says nothing after the Kelly Marie trans situation. Yeah, she should have. Look, Ryan Johnson even came out and tweeted. Ryan Johnson, I cannot remember. I don't have the links to it right here. Actually, maybe I can pull it up here. Ryan Johnson put out, yeah. Let me give me 1 second here to pull this onto my screen here, if you'll indulge me for a minute. So Ryan Johnson, the director of The Last Jedi, love or hate The Last Jedi, Ryan Johnson came out and after the whole thing about, how Kelly Marie Tran, who had just been so brutally harassed for months about herself for Last Jedi. People, obviously a lot of racism, people saying, the stuff that I was reading was just ridiculous. On top of body shaming her, on top of this, on top of that, on top of the other thing, like all this crap. And here's, like, Ryan Johnson put out this tweet in response, and I thought this was really good. And it also addresses those people who are deniers. Like, they deny, oh no, there's no racism, there's no sexism here. No. It's just people who just don't like The Last Jedi. And while they are the majority of the people, yes, to deny this growing cancerous tumor within the Star Wars fandom of the sexist and racist and all this kind of stuff is, at best, living in denial. At worst, it's harboring and enabling them. But anyway, this is what Ryan Johnson wrote. He goes, because he was also replying to something somebody else said. He goes, your implication was not an implication at all. It was explicitly stated in your tweet. You're conflating critiquing a movie with being an abusive asshole to people online. When it's clear as day, they are two separate things, and we're condemning the latter and not the former. And I think there are so many people, and I think Ryan Johnson did a really good job responding to this, in particular talking about the Kelly Marie Tran situation, about, first of all, the denial that people try to deny that there's any racism and sexism going on in this when there clearly is. You know what? Here's, honestly, this is what these people, the people who deny that there's any sexism or racism going on within this anti-Star Wars movement thing. The people who deny them, do you remember back, for those of you who are old enough, do you remember back during the Iraq War, when Iraq had that press secretary dude? Like, the American soldiers were literally in Baghdad. They had gotten into Baghdad and were starting to seize Baghdad. And the whole time, the Iraqi press minister was on TV going, we are destroying the Americans. We are dominating them. They are not going to get anywhere near our capital. It is a great victory for Iraq. Even while the American soldiers were like taking over Baghdad itself. That's what these people who deny that there's any racism or things. And that's what they remind me of, is that Iraqi foreign minister. No, there's no racism, sexism here. Meanwhile, people are changing Wikipedia and all that kind of stuff to call an Asian character ching chang ching chang chang ching. All the while, just no, nothing's wrong here. Nothing's going on. Oh, if there is, it's like 1%. No, it's bigger than that. It's not 50%. It's not even 30%. But it's a significant group of people. Anyway, the fact that Rian Johnson came out and said something increases my disappointment that Kathleen Kennedy still has not. And Kathleen Kennedy's silence over the past 6 months has been very frustrating to me as a fan. As a fan of Star Wars and as a fan of Kathleen Kennedy. I am unabashedly and unapologetically a fan of Kathleen Kennedy, but her silence on all this has been outrageously frustrating to me. And she needs to address things. Not just the vile, cancerous stuff, but she also needs to address, there are legitimate Star Wars fans out there right now who are really unhappy about the direction of Star Wars for legitimate reasons. I mean, I may or may not agree with their reasons, but they're legitimate reasons. And she hasn't even done anything to come out and try to address that a little bit. I mean, even if you were to say, hey, we just want to take Star Wars in kind of a different direction than we've ever done. We hope that by the time we're done with really bringing our vision that you'll want to be, but even if just something, and it's frustrating me that she hasn't. So you're right. Even in the midst of this Kelly Marie Tran unfortunate situation, she still hasn't said anything. While in the meantime, like a director like Rian Johnson is coming out and saying things, and that's frustrating to me. All right, just a couple of minutes left here, guys. Shamantha writes, animation style for the new Spider-Man movie was very jarring to me. Like it as an individual frames, but it doesn't flow as a movie. You see, for me, the jury's still out. Like, I definitely didn't like the style during the first teaser that came out a while ago. I think it grew on me a little bit more here. I'm still not convinced I love it. I'm still not convinced I hate it. I think I still just need to soak in it a little bit more. But, yeah, it does feel like a YouTube animated short film than anything else, but you're right, there are frames of it that look gorgeous, so for me, the jury's still out a little bit. Jake C. writes, hey John, love the show. L3 saying equal, you know what, I'm not going to discuss that because that is a spoiler, and I'm not going to go into it. Sorry about that, man, you can't put stuff like that in there. Let's see. Okay, here we go. What do we have? Moosetack Reviews writes, Jared Leto or Todd Phillips, which will arrive first? Ooh. Talking about the upcoming Joker movies. I think the one that will get here first is the Martin Scorsese one. I think that's the one that's going to get here. That's the one with Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix. I can't back that up with anything. I haven't got any insider information. I think that one will arrive first, but that's just a pure coin toss guess. Dakota Walker writes, first super chat. Oh, thank you, Dakota. But been watching since the AMC days. Why did Ryan do Green Lantern if he hated it so bad? He was already successful and had to know how bad it was when signing on. Thanks for bringing on the filthy. No, Dakota. I mean, that's the thing that we keep saying all the time. Every studio and every filmmaker thinks they're making the next Best Picture Oscar movie when they start. And a lot of times scripts read really well. And look, I've said this many, many times. It's not, and even while you're shooting a movie, most of the time you can't tell. It's not till you get into the edit room and you're putting the film together in the edit room that you really start getting a true feel for how this movie's coming together. It can read great on the page. It can sound like you're hearing directors talking about their vision, or you're hearing writers talking about their vision, or whatever. And you as an individual are putting together these pieces in your head and these pictures in your head, and you're thinking this thing's going to be amazing and everybody's going to love it and blah, 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 blah. And often it does not work out that way, and you don't even realize it until you're in the edit. Like a lot of people think, oh, just by reading the script, you should know if it's good or bad. Well, no, not really. You can read the script and it lays the groundwork and the bones are there, but it's really not until it becomes, because at that point, you're just putting pictures together in your head. It's not until it tangibly starts coming together on a screen that you can sit down and watch that you really know if it's coming together or not. Ryan Reynolds thought this movie was going to be great. Everybody thought this movie was going to be great. Everybody involved with it thought this was going to be a great movie. And it's not until after it's done that you really are able to sit down and go, wow, that did not work out the way we had hoped or the way we had thought the thing was going to come together. So he did it because he thought it was going to be great. That's why. And everybody does when they're starting out making the movie. They all think they're making the next Best Picture winner. All right, guys, that's it for my time today. Listen, if you've sent in a live question, don't you worry. I'm going to take those live questions I didn't have time to get around to, and I'm going to put them in the next companion video. By the way, the latest companion video just went up this morning, so you can go and check that out as well. So anybody of you who, after Dakota sent in questions, don't worry about it. They will be addressed on the next companion video. All right, guys, that will do it for me for today. Listen, for all of you guys who are Patreon supporters, thank you so much. And listen, if you are somebody who enjoys my shows and my programming, do me a favor. Head on over to www.patreon.com/JohnCampea. Get all the information about what it means to be a Patreon supporter, how being a Patreon supporter keeps the show on the air, and what benefits there are to being a Patreon supporter, like the Facebook-only group, like the audio-only versions of the podcast. By the way, a little bit later today, Star Wars Talk, that is exclusively for our Patreon supporters, is going to be on our Facebook group. Make sure you tune into that if you're a Patreon supporter. And maybe you'll want to become a Patreon supporter too. If you do, that's awesome. I'm so grateful. And if not, that's perfectly fine. I'm just honored and humbled that you're here being a film fan with us. All right, guys, that'll do it for me for today. Thanks so much for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until the next video, bye-bye.